Hello guys, I'm Tanicorn. In this video I will be talking about how I created my first 3D game with Unreal Engine 4 for the Brackeys Game Jam 2020. I have made 3 games before: Arena Fighter, a game I made in my spare time which took me around 1 month. I used Unity Engine and created all the assets myself. Staying Alive, a game I made for the Ludum Dare 46 Game Jam which took 3 days. I also used the Unity Engine and created all the assets myself again. The other one was a 3-level 2D platformer using Unity Engine, which I just made for me and my friends. So this game was going to be my first 3D game, also it would be my first time using the Unreal Engine. I tried to use it before, but I could never really get the hang of it, never really understood where to go, and it felt really daunting. So I thought with this project, I would finally have a clear direct path to follow. Since this is my first time making a game on Unreal Engine 4, please tell me if I was doing anything inefficient or just plain wrong. On the 1st of August, the theme was announced and it was Rewind. Initially, I thought of all the rewinding time games that have been really popular as of late: Life is Strange, Quantum Break, Outer Wild, Braid, and much more. So I was trying to think of other ways it could be interpreted to make my game stand out more, as I don't think I would stand much chance against better developers doing the same thing. So that led me to the rewinding a clock idea. It was a very boring idea, but it was different, and a magical moment hit me. I have a book. A magical book, where I jot down game ideas. One of them was a 3D horror game inside a house. This was a great start as I had my idea, my setting, and my story, sort of. By the way, spoilers for the game up ahead. The story would be that inside this house, there is a clock that must be wound up to keep time moving. My initial idea was to make it feel as if you were not alone, however you are. Your own fear would be your mind playing tricks on you. You were completely alone in the house and you were just making yourself scared for no reason. I had this idea because the anticipation and mood of the horror games was what I love the most. Jump scares, for the most part, ruined horror games for me. However, I had to change the story to fit with the more sinister idea. The main interactions would be doors, light switch, furniture, and pages. This would allow the other entity to interact with light switches as well, making it feel like you are not alone. The 3 endings to this game would relate to the title. 2 is where you are alone for eternity, and the 3rd one is your so-called victory, which was supposed to leave you feeling bad, but let's just say bugs crept into my game without me realizing. I started making a house plan. Luckily for me, I've lived in quite a few places, so I have plenty of memories to choose from. I didn't copy exactly, but enough to make it believable. I started with the 1st floor, the 2nd, and I did plan to have an attic, but I scrapped that idea as I knew I wouldn't have enough time. I made a list on what assets I will need and explored the Itch.io and Epic Game Store. I didn't find anything on the Itch.io store, however, luckily enough for me, there was plenty on the Epic Game Store. And amazingly enough, there was a free for the month godsend of a package. I was really lucky. For the majority of the day, I spent it building the level. I learned about the geometry and actor for building a house, and let's just say I hate both of them. They both had issues which I had found, and I had to change the house from being actor-based to geometry-based to actor-based again. Reasons include, but not limited to, textures, making holes in the wall, stretching, and much more. Quite a few hours in, I had made the majority of the house, with furniture, walls, and doors. I decided to make a very simple light switch to add in the game. Why did I make one and not find one? Because I'm lazy. So I made it and continued with the rest of the house and called it a day. Day 2. On day 2, I made my character not have a gun. After all, having a weapon gives players a sense of security, which is a big no-no, and, well, he has a gun that shoots spherical yellow balls. And ashamed as I was, I spent more than half the day trying to make the light switches work. After all, they were one of the key components of the game. I was driving myself mad as I had no idea what was causing only one of the light switches to work and the rest to fail. Eventually, I made all the lights into movable or stationary lights, and it worked. I think the reason why this worked was because when you make a light static and build it, it bakes it into the world so it's permanently there. There is not switching it off. I don't know why it only worked for one of them though, and that one was static, but I'll move on from that and just take that as a theory. Movable and stationary lights could update the light maps in real time. After that problem got fixed, I made interactable doors that worked. Then I tried fixing this weird ambient light that was causing all my rooms to be bright. This would not do, as the game was entirely reliant on the atmosphere. We needed to be eerily dark so the players would get nervous. After looking on Google, I found that it might have been due to the thin objects, so I'd made my structures more thick and tidied it up. Day 3. Unfortunately, I forgot to record day 3, however, luckily it was nothing too interesting. All I did was make the grandfather's clock, which didn't take too long, and I literally spent the entire day trying to get the clock handle to rotate. It just wouldn't work. So I remade the clock and tried again, still nothing. I fiddled around with blueprints, but I still don't know why it didn't work to this day, and I don't know how I fixed it either. Day 4. On the 4th day, I refined some of the positioning of the actors and lights. After that, I went to try out my next subtle challenge. I decided to make points where if the players passes, an event would play. All it was lights being turned on and off. I wanted more points where this would happen, however, I knew I might overdo it, so I only stuck with 4 events. I also had a look at the horror engine for UE4 for inspiration. I saw stuff like blocking the player if he hasn't completed something or making entities appear at certain points, and I tried to look at how that worked, however, it was too confusing. I reckon most of the stuff I wanted to know was written in C++ and not blueprints. The blueprints probably just showed the function for the thing I wanted to understand. Anyway, I got back into my game and decided the final thing to do for today was to make the clock stop every 60 seconds so the player would have to rewind it, which was easy enough. Day 5. I didn't manage to do much today, mostly due to annoying blueprint stuff. I spent a good hour or so trying to figure out why I couldn't reference the HUD. This was because I needed to reference the player character, and then get the HUD, then reference the HUD. Besides that, I decided to make an E pop up for interactions. Initially, I was going to have the E float in the game world, however I quickly changed it as it looked terrible. I also added small static lights next to the light switches so the player could always see them. I then made a piece of paper. Yep, I was struggling to decide whether or not I should make it into another level blueprint system like my triggers, or make them into separate blueprints like my light switches. I knew that the separate blueprint option would have been better, however I couldn't actually understand how it was done, so I decided to sleep on it for now. Day 6. So for most of the day, I added more notes around the house and made more stuff interactable. Needless to say, it was a bit broken. By this time, the level blueprint was becoming a bit full. I thought for sure this would make the game run slower, but luckily for me, there wasn't any speed issues. Anyway, I continued with the notes, changed some of the level by adding physical lights and changing furniture. After a couple of hours of that, I moved on to making the comically large 12-hour-glass. I don't know why I decided to make it that big, but After that little bit was done, I got back into making my notes, as I didn't write any of them yet. So I proceeded to write a story. A family that got tricked into buying a very cheap house. This house was the property of Kronos, a Greek god of time. This god ate his children. So anyway, as I was saying, this god ate his children because he was scared of a prophecy of them overthrowing him. The wife tricked the idiot by making him swallow a rock draped in cloth. This supposed child was Zeus, who I think made Kronos regurgitate the other children. Well anyway, that was enough for me to get the idea of the house being the stomach of Kronos. The child quickly got influenced by the presence of Kronos and acts in a servant manner towards Kronos. The father later comes to this, and the mother remains herself and devises a plot to trick Kronos. Wow, like a real story. Plan explain the notion you want to Day 7. Today would be the day I would have to submit the game, and I was feeling quite ready for it. All I had to do at this point was make the main menu, make the ending widgets, and export. Simple. Yes. My biggest problem of the day was when I exported the game and zipped it. The size was 1.5 gigabytes, and Itch.io only allows 1 gigabyte. So anyways, I started panicking. The first thing I tried to do was deleting assets one at a time. This was painfully inefficient. I had no idea which props use which materials or textures, so I went through some things. But then, I read I could migrate the levels into another project and only the necessary stuff would be imported. Yes, how convenient, I thought. Well, no. Unfortunately, it still kept some useless materials and props which I didn't use. It kept some levels which I didn't migrate either. So once again I went through all the stuff, and this time deleted everything I didn't need. Even after all this, it got me down to 1.15 gigabytes. I was panicked, but then I thought, wait a minute, zip is not the only form of compression. I remembered I had WinRAR on my side, and compressed it that way. After messing around with the advanced settings, I finally managed to get it down to 0.92 gigabytes. Yes, I thought. The project was complete. I finally made my Unreal Engine 4 game, I learned how to use the engine. Now, I'm invincible. No. The game was filled with many bugs. Only one of the endings worked, and the ending was so disappointingly anticlimactic. In fact, some couldn't even reach the end properly. Using doors was more frustrating than I thought it would have been. The E button kept popping up in random places for whatever reason. It was quite a mess, and to be honest, it was a pretty bad game. But I'm very happy with it. With this first step, I now know how to make games in Unreal Engine 4. If I had to say which engine I prefer, I honestly wouldn't know. Unity is great at compressing games, much more than what Unreal seems to be capable of. I've not had the chance to delve too deeply in either engines, but from what I've seen, I feel like there's a massive cavern of opportunities in Unreal Engine. Not to mention that the UE5 has been announced, and the new terms of royalty fees are just... So, which engine will I be using? Both. I mean, I really like the workflow in Unity, and the simplicity of the engine just makes it so friendly to use, whereas Unreal is just going to take a lot more time to master. But the engine does give you a huge boost, creating characters for you to use already with so many example levels. There's just so much content available to use straight off the bat. My game was played by other content creators on YouTube. It was really nice to see, and to be honest, it made me very giddy the entire week. So, big thanks to them, and thanks to anyone that also played. So that said, peeps, thanks for watching. If you know anything which I should know about the Unreal Engine, please comment it. Also, if you enjoyed or learned anything, please like the video. I mostly make funny moments, however I want to start making more devlogs, so if you're interested in that, be sure to subscribe. With that being said, remember peeps to enjoy life, and turn on the lights when you're gaming in the dark.